Hello you guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephanie and I like to talk about horsey stuff and I share my adventures with my draft horse. And today we're doing a full disclosure of really not so smart things that I look back on and go, yeah. I was talking to a fellow equestrian recently and he was saying that good judgment is acquired and acquired through failure, and I had a good laugh about it. We both did. It's so true. It's like you learn how to be a better rider and a better human by not being the best owner or human or rider or whatever. Okay, so the first mistake that I've made with horses is underestimating what actually goes into a well-broke horse. So if you're familiar with my story from some of my other videos, my very first horse was a very well-broke, been there, done that gelding. And he was probably like in his late teens when I got him. I didn't know exactly for sure. And I could do just about anything on this horse. He was like the perfect beginner horse. He would just stand there, and if I asked him to do something, he would do it. He never really spooked at anything. He was super calm and easygoing. I could put little kids on him, and he was just the best behaved guy. And he was just really ideal for helping me build my confidence as a new horse owner and as a beginning rider. As a result though, when I ended up buying Fame, the horse that I have now, I really didn't have a good sense for just how much goes into making a horse like my first horse, where they've just seen it all, done it all, they're relaxed, they're chill. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of experience, and to an extent too, like personality has something to do with it as well. So I kind of went into buying Fame thinking, you know what, I have a background in dog training, I understand behaviorism, you know, like I could handle this. I'm a self-starter, I could watch videos, I could figure it out. I really put a lot of stock into temperament and breed and not as much into just like longevity and experience and training. I made the mistake of thinking that I could kind of train him myself. I thought, you know what, I want to get a horse that I can really grow with, that has a little bit more energy, and I ended up buying him at 5 with 30 days of training, which is a lot to handle for the place that I was at. And so not really having a good sense of what the journey was going to need to be in order to get him to the place that I wanted to get to, there was just a huge mismatch. So that basically leads me to my second mistake, is that I didn't have an experienced horse person in my life to kind of help guide me. For a lot of people, that's a trainer or someone that they're taking lessons from, but it could have been just a really good friend. I could have gotten to know someone maybe at a horseman's association or a riding club, just someone who could have spoken into my life, whose wisdom and judgment I trusted and knew my riding and knew what I wanted to do, who could have said, you know what, buy him, it's fine, but here's what you're signing up for. Like, here's what you're gonna need to invest. I think that would have been huge in helping me set my expectations and then line up the appropriate people to help us along the way earlier on. I have also made the mistake of trying to test too many things at once, particularly when it comes to equipment. So I have had 2 bad falls off of Fame, and the first one, part of the issue was that I was trying to negotiate too many new pieces of equipment at the same time, too many new variables. I was in a dressage saddle, which I was used to riding Western, so that felt very different. I was riding him in a halter with split reins, and he was a new horse, and he was new to the property we were riding on. Oh my gosh, was I even thinking? I don't know. There were just so many things that, looking back on, I could have done differently, and I would have kept myself safer, and I would have created a better experience for both of us. So I really wish that I had had the good judgment to say, you know what, maybe we just change one variable at a time. So now I definitely take the time, if I'm going to introduce a new piece of equipment or a new trail, I always try to kind of keep the variables to a minimum so that I can make the experience positive and not too confusing, and just kind of limit the potential for drama or stuff going wrong. It also helps me understand, like, okay, the problem is this, the problem is the saddle pad, the problem is the bit, or something like that. Another big mistake that I have made that is really specific to my belief system and my approach to being an equestrian is riding without a helmet. I have had 2 concussions, as I've mentioned, and I really can't believe that the second time I did not even have a helmet on. I literally fell off and crash landed into a pipe panel and dented the pipe panel with my head. I feel so fortunate that I am alive and here to talk to you guys today because it could have been really bad. I know a lot of nurses that work in trauma and ER and they're just like, yeah, like whether you're riding a bike or a motorcycle or a horse, just wear a helmet. They see so many awful injuries and things from people that were being safe and responsible, and you know, like just stuff happens. So I've definitely made the commitment to ride with a helmet. I know not everybody feels this way, and I definitely don't have judgment against people that opt not to. I ride with a lot of people that don't wear helmets, and I've noticed that in the Western world in particular, it's much more socially acceptable, I guess, to not ride with a helmet. But personally, I just prefer to ride with a helmet. I feel like it's an easy step that I can take to protect myself. Like, why wouldn't you? I tell myself that like, okay, yeah, maybe helmets aren't super sexy, but brain injuries really aren't sexy. A couple other things that I've done that was just like equipment stuff that I didn't even realize wasn't safe was, number one, I used to practice loading my first horse into the horse trailer without the trailer attached to anything. And I had someone tell me later, like, yeah, that's really not safe. You shouldn't do that. Apparently, you know, if the horse were to spook or something were to go wrong, like having the trailer attached to a truck helps stabilize it and keep it from flipping. And so even though nothing ever happened and we were okay, I just have a mental note in my head now to like never practice trailer loading unless the trailer's actually attached to the truck. The other thing that I didn't know is that you actually need a trailer brake system for your truck. So I originally started off trail riding with a Sequoia, and they do have the capacity to tow, and thankfully I was just towing like on straight flat land less than a mile down the road. But I didn't realize that you need a special device that you can have installed, or if you have a newer truck, a lot of them already have them pre-installed, that will regulate the brake on your trailer. And you can adjust them, and they're super useful and super important. And I didn't know that you needed one of these. And so when I went to go take my car in for service, my brake pads were like almost nothing. And the guys were like, yeah, you need to get these changed right away. Like, what are you doing? Another mistake I have made is underestimating the power of the herd. So my first horse I actually kept in pasture with a herd of other horses, and it worked out really well for him and for me. One time I went out there to just hang out with him, and I decided to just hop on bareback. And at one point, the herd decided that they were going to migrate up to the top of the hill. All of a sudden, my horse was just like, yeah, we're going. And boom, everyone started loping up this huge hill. I was just kind of along for the ride. Like, I had no equipment, no tack. Even though I felt like I had a good relationship with my horse, his relationship to his other herd mates and being part of that herd dynamic was so powerful, and it completely overrode anything that I would have wanted to do otherwise in that moment. And it ended up being fine, but I was definitely a little bit nervous as it was happening because I wasn't quite sure if he was gonna be mindful of the tree branches and stuff, thought I might fall off. I really just wasn't sure where we were going. And it really taught me that, you know, horses are herd animals, and that influence and that relationship is so instinctual and so strong in them. We as riders and as owners have to be aware of how that's impacting our horses. So now with Fame, I definitely pay attention to how he might be feeling if other horses are around. And I'm asking him to do something that might be contrary to what the herd is doing, or if the herd is maybe behaving in a way that I know isn't going to be safe for us, I try to really think ahead and go, okay, what can I do that's going to be smart for us in this situation? So like when you're riding with groups of friends, there's a very strong pull for horses to all want to stay together, to go at the same pace. Sometimes that might mean other horses rushing to catch up or not wanting to leave the group. And some of those things, you know, you can work on with your horse, you can train your horse. Ideally, we want our horses to have that connection and to listen to us regardless. It was a little bit foolish on my part to not realize that there is certain circumstances and a dynamic that's happening there that has an incredible pull and incredible strength on my horse's mind and on my horse's behavior that I just kind of had no clue about before I actually got on him that day. Another huge mistake that I would say I have made is getting on my horse or spending time with my horse when I'm not present and not in a good emotional space. I paid a huge price for this, actually. This is also, again, connected back to that second time that I fell off of Fame. We were faced with being evicted out of our current boarding facility, and at that point I wasn't sure where we were gonna go. I just knew we were kind of headed into this next step of our journey, and I wasn't sure what it was gonna look like. So I was nervous about it, and I was just grieving losing what we had. So I ended up getting on him in a place that was just more of my own emotions that were kind of hijacking my thought process at the time. It really ended up meaning that I wasn't paying attention, I wasn't present, and we ended up, you know, in a jam, in a mess, and I got hurt, and he was stressed and traumatized from it too. And of course, not every instance is gonna look like that, right? It doesn't mean if you're not in the perfect frame of mind that you can't get on your horse or else something horrible is gonna happen. But I know I'm not the only person that has experienced this, where you look back on something that didn't go well. Maybe it was just a riding session that was kind of sour, and you go, you know what? I really just wasn't in a good frame of mind. And so now I really try to utilize the drive to the ranch to put on some happy music, clear my mind of whatever stress that I'm facing with work or at home or just personally. Take some deep breaths, because those are always good for you, and just think ahead about what do I want to accomplish, what am I looking forward to, what am I really grateful for about having Fame in my life and being able to ride. And I find that by the time I get to the ranch and I'm actually interacting with him, I'm in a better space, and I know that he picks up on that, and I know that it helps our connection and whatever it is that we plan to work on that day. Now it is your turn. I would love to hear down in the comments below mistakes that you've made with horses, things that you kind of look back and go, what was I thinking? Because I think it's really great to be able to share our failures, our hiccups, our mistakes, things that we just didn't know better, and kind of add lightness to the horse journey, because we are all learning along the way. And I think it's so helpful to hear from other people about the things that you've done in the past, or maybe that you've done very recently that you're like, oh yeah, oops. So let me know down in the comments if you feel like sharing some of those. I would love to hear them. So I am planning to do a follow-up video to this, talking about choices that I am really glad that I made during my horse journey, things that I feel like have really helped us. And I'd love to be able to share that with you. So if you are interested in watching that, I would encourage you to subscribe. Please hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed this video, if you connected with it at all, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Cheers!